The debate procedures to outline how the time is going to work for this. There will be 3 kinds of questions in this debate. For questions directed at all candidates, please limit your answer to 1 minute, candidates. For questions directed at an office, you will be afforded 1.5 minutes to answer the question and 30 seconds to respond to the answers provided by other candidates for your position. For questions from the audience, please limit answers to 2 minutes for questions directed at a specific office and 1 minute for questions directed to all candidates. Kelly's going to be keeping time, and she'll notify you when your time is up. So once you're notified, please wrap up what you're saying immediately. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to allow for opening statements from each candidate. So starting on the right of the stage, and just a heads up to candidates, there's only 2 mics, they're going to be passing them around. So for opening statements, we're going to give you each 1 minute to introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shiko Mahira, and this year I'm running for SUA Chair. Now, when I was thinking about running for this position, it's a really big office, and I knew there was 3 things that I wanted to carry with me. One is the ability to listen. Your issues are my issues, and I really want to also highlight that during the rest of the debate, but please know that, I can't set my agenda without you. And as chair, I really want to learn how to listen to the students and really take in what they want to have worked on for the rest of the year. Secondly is empowerment. This is an office that has a lot of resources to it, and I really want to stress that these resources are not for me to show you how I can help you, but to show you that I can serve you as chair. And so, being that said, the SUA is a resource to students, and this should be really highlighted. Lastly is acting. The SUA has done a lot of work in the past, and we want to make sure that we want to act on the issues that you care about. And as chair, I really want to take us back to a grassroots type of feel. And so those are the couple of reasons why I'm running for chair. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shaz Umer. I'm running to be the next SUA chair with Slugs United. Now, I joined SUA back in August of 2010, and the first position I got involved with, some of my experiences, I interned for the chair, where I worked on the campus budget. The following year, I was a chief of staff to the chair, and this year I'm the current internal vice chair. Now, what do these positions mean? Because every time we hear candidates running for these positions, what have we done? So this year I created the Slug Shuttle, where we transport over 1,100 students to San Jose Dare International Airport for free. We also did UCSC's Got Talents, which we catered a $2,000 scholarship to our fellow students. And we also worked on creating the CSO dispatch service with campus housing and the chief of police. Next year, I want to continue working on campus safety with the chief of police to make sure we have better lighting on campus, because our lighting is not efficient. I also want to make sure we work with SOAR to make sure that the 180 organizations, we can give room space on campus, and that we do have a second OPERS during spring quarter here at UCSC. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Melody Aguilar and I'm running to be your next internal vice chair. And just real briefly, the reason why I'm even here, sitting here today in front of you all, is because honestly, the Student Union Assembly has given me a voice in a way in which, as a woman of color, as an immigrant, as a working class, all of those different intersectionalities that pertain to me, it has given me a voice to share my struggles with other students, with the governor, with legislators, and I recognize that this is a privilege, but I also want to bring this back to next year for all the student body, and I want to uplift students as well. I want to empower you, and I want us to work together so you can share your stories too, because your stories are just as beautiful as mine. And with that knowledge and with that power, we can uplift each other and conquer very beautiful things together, while obviously also focusing on the academic problems that we have, issues of campus climate and campus safety, retention, and all those other issues that we know we face on this campus. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Max Huft and I'm running to be your next internal vice chair with Slugs United. Currently, I am a second-year computer science major, and I am also a gay working class student. I have also been a chair of my Senate. I have been advocating for students in the Student Fee Advisory Committee, the Committee on Educational Policy, and several other committees. A lot of us student leaders have gotten this criticism that we're all just trying to build our resume. And for me, when I put down stuff on my resume, and when I go into an interview, I'm gonna say I did some stuff with leadership in my Senate and other areas, but I'm going to tell them about how I was a student supervisor with dining, as well as also scrubbing the toilets for the education that I'm earning right now. I have several other different ideas that I really want to bring to this campus, a lot more student life, and a lot of ways to bring down the walls that we have created and bring everyone together as one giant community and one giant university. Thank you all so much for coming here. My name is Max Huft. I'm running to be your next internal vice chair with Slugs United.
Hello everyone, my name is Cameron Ali and I'm running to be your next external vice chair. And three things that I really want to push next year, coming from my own experience working within the EVC office, but also being the campaign coordinator for the organizing director's office this year. I want to work on pushing legislation that puts students' issues first. I want to fight against tuition hikes and tuition increases that have been happening. And I want to do this by working with the University of California Student Association, which has been very effective in the last 2 years, giving a tuition freeze for the last 2 years. And another thing that I really want to work on is I want to increase student voice and empower students by growing the lobby core space under the EVC office. The reason I want to do that is because it's given myself a great voice, and I feel like a lot of students can use that space in order to go out and keep legislators and regents accountable directly, and I want to grow that space to facilitate that. And the third thing that I really want to work on is bring an impact back to local affairs and restore that, because I feel like there's a divide between the campus and also the town, and I really want to emphasize that we are just one community. I'm going to do that by going to city council meetings and also going to work with community leaders. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Hi everyone, my name is Tony Milgram and I'm running to be your next external vice chair. As a first generation American and college student, I find myself really lucky to be able to attend UC Santa Cruz and value the opportunities I have here every day. To me, external affairs means to be working with the city of Santa Cruz, with external affairs offices of other UC campuses, and with the student regents to make sure the student voice is heard and that our education system is a top priority of legislators. Throughout my last 2 years here at UCSC, I've been in a fraternity, Alpha Epsilon Pi, which I'm now the vice president of. I've served as a college 10 student senator, representative to SUA, SCOC, and CAFA, the Committee on Admissions and Financial Aid. As your next external vice chair, I pledge to focus equally on local and state affairs. Locally, I would like to focus on community safety and involvement, as well as advocating for a student presence in our local government. On the state level, I would like to work on education affordability, environmental sustainability, and transparency within the UC regions. Paired with my qualifications, experiences, and passion for external affairs, we'll be able to produce tangible results and have a more unified student body. Once again, my name is Tony Milgram, and I'm going to be next external vice chair.
I'm Charles C. Chang, and I'm running for Commissioner of Diversity, and I have a wide range of experiences from SUA rep appointed and elected, secretary, vice chair, IBC outreach coordinator, EVC intern, sitting on the student fee advisory committee, being on the board of directors for cultural arts and diversity for the past 2 years, and interning at city council downtown with Mayor Don Lane. And diversity encompasses acceptance and respect. It means understanding that each individual is unique and recognizing those differences. It can be along the lines of dimensions of race, gender, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, political views, interests, likes, and dislikes. It's the exploration of these differences in a safe, positive, and nurturing environment. It's about moving beyond simple tolerance and actually embracing and celebrating the rich dimensions that we encompass as diversity. It has the potential to rise above the norms, break stereotypes, and connect students, and it can bring students of all identities to act as agents of change in the evolving UC Santa Cruz. And the students have the power, but we need to empower them.
Good evening. My name is Daryl Trinidad, and I'm running to be your Commissioner of Diversity. There's this Tagalog saying, isang bagsak. It means one down. This saying started to be widely used in the United Farm Workers Movement, as Filipinos and Latino Chicanos working together side by side. It was said at the end of the workday as a sign of celebration that followed this unity clap, where all the field and farm workers gathered together despite their language barriers. It is this idea of seeing our differences and embracing community. Isang bagsak, we fall together, we rise together. That is what diversity is. I stand for inclusion, safety, and student retention. As your Commissioner of Diversity, I will work collectively with community activists and administration, supporting student organizations, fighting for family and student housing, and supporting and enhancing campus units such as our resource centers and SOAR. Let me be of service to you. Isang bagsak.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan. I'm really excited to be running as our next Commissioner of Academic Affairs. And first I'd like to share some three main priorities I have for the year next year. The first of which is accessibility to our university, especially for our most underrepresented groups, being students of color and first-generation students. Second of all, I would like to focus on retaining our current student body, and really this means increased library hours without raising student fees, expanding and enhancing learning support services. Thirdly, I would like to offer opportunities to connect students to bridge the academic classroom learning that we had to experiential, practical, applied knowledges, then that means increased internships and job opportunities for students. I have worked as an organizer since high school who strives to build coalitions towards social justice, and more specifically in our case, educational justice. I will be out of the office and on the ground as a resource to our campus body. I, along with my fellow progressive student candidates, will ensure that the SUA... Okay, well anyway, thank you so much.
Alrighty. Hi, thank you guys all for coming, but my name is Vanessa Morales, and I'm running for Commissioner of Academic Affairs. So over the last 3 years, I've been involved in Merrill Student Government and the SUA through different representative positions and different committees, but that's not all I've done. I've worked in a lab, I've worked as part of the Academic Senate, and as a tour guide here on campus. And through all of that, I've learned so much about the campus and the interest and opportunities that students have here. But even just because I learned of those doesn't mean every student has. And I really want to expand my learning to all of you, and also understand what all you need to either get a job after college by having experience in whatever your field is. It could be going to the library at 3 o'clock in the morning, because maybe we can expand the hours to eventually 24/7, hopefully. And to other different issues that help retention and to help us succeed as students. And thank you.
Thank you, candidates. At this time, we're going to move on to our prepared questions. Our first question is for every candidate, and we would like you to limit your answers to 1 minute per candidate. We're going to start on the left side of the stage this time with the Commissioners of Academic Affairs. The question is, what are the most important issues affecting the UC Santa Cruz student body? What would you do to address some of these issues?
Okay, so some of the biggest issues that I think affects students at UC Santa Cruz is that the affordability of our education. We need to be able to afford our education and to be able to stay here so we have this wonderful education, get jobs after college, or go to grad school, whatever it is that your plan is. Another thing that we really need is the fact that we want support, not just from administration and other students and our professors. We want to be able to work with all of them so that we can all have the same kind of support that we need, whether this is extended library hours and other issues that can affect students. Another thing that I really want to work on is the fact that we have, that we have a lot of different interactions that we can have with administration, whether it's through the academic senate committees, and we can talk to them directly about what affects us. Because we are all students here. So this is the biggest part of our, the biggest aspects of what is affecting us as students, as education.
So I definitely have some things that I would like to mention about issues affecting the Academic Affairs Office, but first I'd like to say I really would view my role as the Commissioner of Academic Affairs as someone who would establish frameworks to make the CAA office an inviting and welcoming space for all students across communities across campus, making Student Academic Senate or Committee a welcoming space and making that engaged with student groups in the campus community so that students can take ownership and reclaim our academics. And that goes along with my emphasis on accessibility to our university, especially for students of color and first-generation students. I will work as a resource to engaging education to support student-initiated outreach programs. They're some of the greatest programs we have on our campus, and they could use a lot of support from SUA that exists but could be enhanced. I will also work to increase retention efforts. There can be simple things like streamlining our study spaces on campus, just making a list saying, here are places to study on campus that may not necessarily be the university library, but here are the hours, and that you can go to them. Also, securing long-term funding for our library is very important, and that's one of the big issues I think we could work on.
One more note I'll say to the candidates, if you'd like me to repeat a question at any time, let me know. I realize there's a lot of you up there.
I think that diversity is something that really needs to be emphasized here at UC Santa Cruz. Looking at the campus climate and how unsafe this campus is for a lot of people. And when I talk about certain issues like race, I'm not just talking about students of color, but also including that our counterparts, folk who don't identify as students of color, are also included in this conversation. There's this idea of this community here at UC Santa Cruz that we often don't see. You know, you look at the 10 college systems here, and you know where people are at. Let's be real, you know where people are at. So we have this identity of people where we need to make sure that everyone here is included, make sure that everyone is represented, knowing that we have people from all walks of life here at this university, and that students are making sure that they're getting their voices heard, and making sure that they can feel safe here at this university.
Just some of the main, what was the question? Sorry.
What are the most important issues affecting the UC Santa Cruz student body? What would you do to address some of these issues?
Okay, some of the main issues include retention and accessibility. And retention regarding the resource centers, accessibility regarding on-campus jobs and after graduation. A lot of students under the Blue and Gold plan whose families make under $80,000, it says on paper that they have enough financial aid, but they don't because they can't find work-study jobs. And there's not enough work-study jobs on campus for enough students. And that's a problem, and Max and I, sitting on the Student Fee Advisory Committee, made that one of our main priorities, to create more student jobs, and we advocated for over 30 new job creations. And also, we're 30 minutes away from the Silicon Valley. How come Google doesn't come to our school? And how come we don't have better alumni connections with the Alumni Association?
So two of the biggest issues that come to mind in terms of what's wrong with the student life, I would say are one, outreach, and two, our relations with the city of Santa Cruz. So in terms of outreach, I know that a lot of people don't know about the SUA. You can come up to any student in the quarry and you can ask them what the SUA is, and odds are they probably won't know. So as your next external vice chair, I want to make sure that everyone knows what's going on, not only within my office, but within the SUA. I will make it a goal that either myself or someone in my office will go to at least one meeting of every single student organization that is SOAR registered. In addition, our relations with the city of Santa Cruz. There are nearly 16,000 students that go to this campus, and about 53% of them live off campus. That means that they are not only students of UCC, but they are also citizens of the city of Santa Cruz. And I think that we deserve to have a relation with the city of Santa Cruz and have a say in what goes on. So I want to work on a community outreach council that provides community gardens or feeding the homeless or setting up quarterly carnivals for children in underprivileged communities.
So looking at through an external lens as far as what two of the biggest issues that are concerning students, and the biggest one I'd have to say is accessibility. Through an event that I did with some other candidates, the number one thing that students said was, what was your biggest issue? And the biggest issue was budget cuts to this university and the increases of tuition. And a way that I really plan on tackling that is through my experience and my qualifications within the EVC office and working through the organizing director's office. I've been able to lobby representatives and look and really be able to engage with regents and see what they think about these issues. And what I want to do is I want to increase the voice of students by, and the way I want to tackle this issue of accessibility is really getting the student voice out, because when the voice is out, these people listen, these representatives listen, so when you have that direct link, that's something that I really want to create, and that's what's really going to make change across this tuition. And some people may say that that can't be done, but that's just something that really can be done, because the last 2 years we've been able to have a tuition freeze. That's something that I want to work towards again next year.
Hello again, everyone. I have seen several different issues here at this campus, but the one that strikes me the most and has inspired me to run for internal vice chair is the state of our student life. Right now I've seen so many different issues about different events going on, several different things, none that really just bring everybody together. I've also seen a lot of stress and a lot of struggle from students. And for me, I really want to address those as your next IVC. I want to bring a concert to this campus. All these other universities have these giant concerts. Hell, SunGod was this weekend. Why can't we have something like that? I also want to bring a food bank to all students, running off donations from different grocery stores around here in Santa Cruz, things that won't cost students a dime, but will also improve our community relations. I also want to bring more outreach for all these amazing events that we already have at this campus. Right now, we have all these events that we fund through our SOFA Student Work Funding Advisory Committee, and I want to make sure that every single one of these events that we fund get 5 hours of my outreach coordinator's times to outreach for SUA as well as for different events that are being funded. Thank you so much.
So some of what other folks have said kind of touches on what I'm about to say, but I also believe that there is a really big disconnect between students and the resources that are offered on this campus, whether it's through SUA, whether it's the Big Six, whether it's smaller organizations that only have 5 to 15 people, but still offer so much to the community and still hold magnificent events. So although while I think a concert would be a great idea to bring students together, my priorities are a little different in that I want to bring students together, but I want to bring them together for a purpose. Because I recognize that there are students out there that are thinking and considering about the fact of dropping out because they have to attend a community college next year because they can't afford this. You get me? So my priorities are just a little bit shifted, in which I think it's beautiful that we should come together to empower ourselves and other people. But at the same time, what is the purpose? What is the real purpose of coming together and enjoying one weekend when we have nothing to take back for ourselves? So I really want to focus on spreading those resources to allow us to strive as students academically and to be able to empower others as well.
So there's a few main topics that I want to hit on, and the first is campus safety. Currently, I'm working with the chief of police to make sure that we have some sort of texting service. So if you have an emergency, you can text that into the police department to make sure that you are safe on this campus. I also set up the Cops and Coffee, where I got the chief of police to sit down with student leaders on our campus once a quarter to make sure there's transparency between our student leaders and the police. We need to increase the CSO dispatch service to off-campus and make it accessible to our off-campus students. And also lighting. Lighting is a big problem on this campus. We have a bike path over here to the field where there's so many accidents each year because lighting's not there. Second is transparency. As SUA officers, we need to attend these meetings. Every single week of this year, I've attended a meeting, whether that was College Night Center or the Iranian Student Network. Every single week I was at a meeting to increase transparency. The last is room space. We have 180 organizations and so many students have trouble with room space. So we need to open up these classrooms that are not being utilized and make sure that students can go on an online reservation system like the McHenry Library and reserve a space. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So a couple of issues that are affecting our campus. I'm going to speak from not I think, but I know. One of the things that as I've been on this campaign trail is kind of really talking to students and really asking them like, what's a big issue for you? A lot of students mention class availability, a lot of students mention retention, a lot of students mention space for student organizations to meet, and one of the most important things that I found was that the SUA can't provide this if there's not an SUA space that's functional enough to come together to put together a campaign. The SUA space lacks cohesion amongst the college senates and the org reps. Priorities are just definitely shifting, and I feel like there's a huge lack of understanding amongst the college senates and the orgs and the SUA officers of what really needs to be done to address the student issues. And so I also want to mention that a lot of these programs that folks are mentioning are really cool, but also that there are different departments who have been working on this, for instance. So the Chief Nader, especially space of the texting service, that's a service that they've been working on for the beginning of the year. Thanks.
Right side of the stage this time, so Sheikha will be speaking first. What do you think the SUA's role and your office's role should be in relation to other student organizations on campus?
I mentioned earlier that my office is one that shouldn't be about helping folks, it should be about serving folks. I really want to stress the idea of the SUA as being an open resource for all students to come and approach, but they can't approach the space if it's not approachable in the first place. This SUA space has been commented upon as being unwelcoming, unsafe for students. Folks don't feel like they can come in and really get what they need from the space, and that's wrong. The SUA should be a space where folks can make funding requests, but also approach each office and know that there's someone who's there to talk to them. Office hours are really important. That definitely hasn't been capitalized on this year, and I really think that office hours should be used to also connect with the students.
You know, as a chair, when you're elected, you're here to support the students and also the officers, and that's very important because each officer has a specific function within the SUA space, and there's been so much contentious this year with all these political parties. So as a chair, you have to make sure you work and to give the full support to each and every single officer. So you give that support to the officers, and it will make them successful and make the SUA space successful. And they bring that to assembly, and make sure you work with every single one of the representatives and the org reps and the college reps to make sure that they are successful as well. Being the chair, you have to make sure that we're all here to support each other, and we're all united. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
What do you think the SUA's role and your office's role should be in relation to other student organizations on campus?
Student organizations, okay. So I kind of stated it a little bit earlier, but I do believe in the power of student organizations, as I am a co-chair for a new South American org that started 2 quarters ago with the lovely Andrea over there. So I recognize that these spaces are not only providing resources, but they're also providing an open space in which students can feel comfortable, they can feel retained, they can feel like they can be themselves, they can make friends. And I understand the importance of these organizations, which is why as internal vice chair, I want to host more events that not only recognize these smaller little spaces, but bring them together to completely unify them and be visible on campus so other students can join, so other students can learn from you, and that way we can all be retained together and also learn about these different resources that are offered. Because obviously as a South American student with an organization, I can only do so much, but if I learn about other ethnic spaces, you get me, so like the community building will be so much bigger. And I'm just about out of time.
SUA is the Student Union Assembly. It is currently the union we have for all students, and it was founded by 5 different student organizations, and I want to make sure that we go back to those roots. I want to make sure that it is myself, either my chief of staff, or my communications director, or my director of student life, at every single one of these different meetings, at least once per month, to make sure that we are doing what we can to stay as a union of students, bring us together to see what events we can do for every single student. That way we can remain true as a student union, a union of all students working for events for every single different organization to bring us together, but also to show what makes us good between our differences. That is my main thing I really want to do, but bringing our organizations together.
So the role for SUA, and also speaking for the own Office of External Affairs, is the number one thing it has to do is has to empower students. That is the number one goal I feel for this, and I feel that the best way to sort of deal with that through External Affairs is going out through an idea I call community action, which isn't simply just going out to different community spaces and different orgs. It's about getting them actively involved through a grassroots technique. And that way is getting out people's voices by coming to places like Lobby, or getting involved with different communities within SUA. And that way you can have a direct link between not just only on a local and statewide level, but also a national level. That's something I really also want to emphasize coming from an external viewpoint, is that working with groups like the United States Student Association, seeing as how nationally it can seem really difficult to get your voice heard on such a big stage, we have the privilege of being part of such an amazing organization, such as the United States Student Association, that can allow our voices to be heard on such a huge scale. And that's something that I really want to work towards, and I feel that this is the best way to empower students.
Can you please repeat the question?
Of course. What do you think the SUA's role and your office's role should be in relation to other student organizations on campus?
So what I think the role of my office, specifically External Affairs, should be is that if you're electing me, I'm here to serve you. I'm doing what you want, not what I want. This is your student union. This is your school. I want to come to you. So like I said before, whether it be in myself or my staff going to student organization meetings, or even going to a group of friends and really trying to see what do you want to see out of the student union. What do you want to see done? I want to show you how you can make change, because we can really show the facts and come out to students and really band together and create a more unified student body. Thank you.
Okay, so what I said earlier was that I believe that diversity is moving beyond simple tolerance and actually embracing and celebrating the rich dimensions that encompass diversity. And something that we say is that hate stems from ignorance, and ignorance is combated by education. So what I think my office needs to do is help SOAR, because SOAR oversees over 180 student organizations, and these student organizations need the support to hold their events, have their spaces, hold their meetings, and that way they can educate the students during their time to educate and grow and become the young adults that become functioning people in society.
SUA's role to the student organizations are to advocate for the student's voice. And the Commissioner of Diversity's role to the student organizations is making sure that they have the resources to fund and the resources to do what they do here. You know, whether it's promoting critical thinking, having events that celebrate diversity, having events that get people all together to make sure that we go to a very inclusive environment. You know, one of the things that Charles brought up was the fact that SOAR does have like a very bureaucratic system. And this is something that I'm also currently looking at. Currently we have a new system of rules in order that have this unnecessary bureaucracy that hinders a lot of students from organizing. You know, this system was established by faculty members who overspent a lot of their funds, and currently we have a lot of student organizations who are responsible in these things. You want to make sure you can get an event proposal, you can get all that done? Well, then let's get rid of this current bureaucracy. You want to make sure that we can get things done? Let's get more support for advisors. Thank you.
I think that for both the Commissioner of Academic Affairs office and the SUA in general, the role of those two bodies and student organizations on campus is to be present, to be in those spaces, be on campus, be present on campus in general, and be present in student groups. Something that we at Progressive Students have been doing in our campaigning is being on the ground. We've had whiteboards asking students what issues matter to them. A lot of the students that I first encountered while doing this said, oh, I don't have any issues, I'm not political, I'm not into SUA, and we got talking and they told me about their big class sizes, they told me about their living conditions, they told me about not being able to pay for school. And I don't believe in apathy, I believe in alienation, and I think SUA can be an alienating space for many students. Because, and I can say for Progressive Students, we come from student groups, we come from community organizations. We're not all about that political stuff. We're all about community, bringing people together and taking action together. This isn't about politics to me. It's about building coalitions to make change.
Of course. What do you think the SUA's role and your office's role should be in relation to other student organizations on campus?
Okay, so I am a third year, but I'm also part of different organizations here on campus. I've been part of different labs, I've been part of student governments, I've been part of Greek licensee quarter. All of this is incorporated into who I am, but all of it is also incorporated into who you are. Whatever spaces you're a part of, even just your college, there's a reason why you're there. And all those reasons are also incorporated into the reasons why you're here at UC Santa Cruz as a student. So all of this and all of the organizations that you're a part of, my focus is really to help you, to be there for you, to see how I can help you get to any administration that you may need to contact, for any resources that you want to use for your events, for your proposals, all of that. I would really, the issues that I've seen that are most important are accessibility to the resources that we already have, expanding both libraries, because we don't just have one library, we have two, and that's a big issue, and some more.
At this time, we're going to be moving into questions for the specific officer candidates. Our first question will be for the candidates for chair. So if you'd mind passing them back to those candidates, please. And again, the format for these questions, I'm going to have 1.5 minutes for the first candidate, and then a half-minute response from the second candidate, then 1.5 minutes from the second candidate, and a half-minute response from the first candidate. So you'll both be able to speak for 1.5 minutes and respond to the other person running for position for 30 seconds. So the question for the chair. Why does the SUA space matter to you, and what is your vision for this space? Starting with Shika.
The SUA space matters to me because I feel like I wouldn't be here without all of the experiences and all the people pushing me to be better than I ever expected I could be. The role that the chair has is primarily to empower those, and folks have mentioned empowerment. I believe this office is one that should give tools to students and skills to students to also allow them to do great things on this campus. We're organizers. What we do is we organize around issues that affect us. And this is important because it's if we're not organizing around issues that affect us on a daily basis, then we're taking the status quo from whatever administration is giving us. And that's not okay. The office should be about really building up leaders and building that foundation up so that they can also tackle those issues. And when we say we care, we want to listen and things like that, there should be action behind it. This office should honestly be about getting down on the ground with the students and also rallying in the quarry. And when we're not rallying in the quarry, we're being advocates for the students in the spaces where EDC Galloway and the Chancellor are. Because they have priorities like putting the amphitheater up for something where they want to do. But it's our libraries aren't even open for 24/7. So their priorities shifts, and I want to be an advocate on behalf of the students.
Running for any position, you have to remind yourself that you're doing it because of the students, that you're a student, and that you're running to become a student leader, not a politician. And I feel like a lot of people forget that. Being in this position as IVC this year, I've learned so much. It takes up so much time of just doing a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy and fiscal stuff to get students paid. But what you have to remind yourself is that at the end of the day, if you give the support to the officers that deserve it, if you go in the SUA space and facilitate a good discussion, making sure all the student voices are
Time for your response.
What?
That's time for your first response. Just to clarify, so I'm going to give a minute and a half to the first person, then a half-minute response for you. Now you're going to have a minute and a half to answer the question, and then there will be a half-minute response from the first candidate.
So am I responding to?
That was your half-minute to respond to Chico, but now you have a minute response to make your own statement. A minute and a half to make your own statement.
To make my own statement. All right, so continuing on what I was saying.
Sorry, Chase.
One of the things I brought up was the amphitheater, and I agree. I mean, the library affects all students on this campus, and the money should be going to there. But what if you meet with administration, they're trying to fundraise for this. A $5 million donation was made to the barn specifically for the barn. So if people want to donate specifically for the amphitheater, since that's the space on campus, they can do that. And then as for getting state funding or any other funding, that should go to the library services and to extend those hours, because that is a resource that all students use, and that's very important. But if a donor wants to donate to a specific project, we can't allocate that money. That's something that needs to be understood. And also, being part of the SUA, being the SUA chair, you have to make sure that every student voice is heard. I mean, student action, student power, and student voice. We have to make sure every single student voice is heard, and that no one ever feels shot down from the SUA space, because I know so many people who leave the SUA every single year because they feel shot down by an officer who gets $1,000 a month versus the reps and the org reps who are volunteers. Thank you.
Chico, you're offered 30 seconds response at this time.
The priorities of the administration are messed up. I can't study for 24/7 in the amphitheater. I can't go to class and realize that there are going to be enough chairs for us, and have a small discussion with the amphitheater or the barn fixed. And I think it takes a lot of discussion with the donors who are donating to this campus to realize that as students, as alumni who are donating back, there are different priorities that we have, and they should really be consulting us, and the admin should really be advocating for us, and we should be advocating for ourselves to really shift their priorities.
Time, thank you.
Never, ever be the only thing that we rely on. And so we want to be able to reduce the class sizes just a little bit so we can have this as a supplement, as like something to help you off when you study, when you're reviewing for a test, not something that is only going to be what you're, like, you don't want to take Psych 1 as an online course. I know I didn't want to take biology as an online course. Anything, it's just, it helps, but it's not, it cannot be the only option.
I'll try to keep this to 30 seconds, but I want to say that I think what we really need to see at UC Santa Cruz is remembering our roots as a university. We started with a focus on undergraduate education, interdisciplinary studies, and we have gone so far from that. It breaks my heart and it makes me sick. And I think that to say online education could even be a supplement is a shame, because I think we are disserving our student body here by saying you're going to learn from a computer, and you are going to learn so that you can spit back information, not learn from each other, learn from your classmates in seminars, and teach as learning. And I think we really need to remember that that's the university that we started here, and we're not there anymore. We can bring it back though.
Thank you. As we move into the next round of questions for the officer candidates, I want to remind you to please limit outbursts and applause between candidates so we can get through as many questions as possible. Thank you. The next question will be for the candidates for chair. We'll start with Shaz this time.
Thanks, Cassidy.
No problem. Technical difficulties in the PowerPoint. You want to work on that and ask the question. So we're going to work on getting the PowerPoint back to the audience, but I'm going to ask the question for the chairs anyway. The question is, what does shared governance mean to you in balancing your role as an advocate for students while working with campus administration?
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of the projects that came up this year was this amphitheater business. And this is brought up all the time. So we work with administration, but at the same time we have to pressure administration. We have to rally, we have to support. What I've learned is you have to do both. One, you have to pressure administration through your rallies and through your First Amendment rights, and get out the student voice, and as an officer, you have to be out there with them. And second, you have to work with administration, because one of our biggest allies we've had in student government is working with EVC Galloway and working with the Dean of Students. And every single shared candidate for the last 2-3 years, they know this is a big ally, working with administration, because our administration compared to other UC campuses is very transparent to our SUA, and they're here to support us. Thank you.
Do I get a 30-second response?
30-second response, then a minute and a half to address the question.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that the administration came to students, came to the officers with this idea of the amphitheater. This is not something that the students really pushed to see. And secondly, I want to highlight that we as officers don't work for administration. We work for the students. And so what the students want is what we should be bringing to the table, and the students should, or the administration should be meeting us at that point. That's it. Okay. Can you repeat the question, please?
Why does the SUA space...
Sorry for the confusion. What does shared governance mean to you in balancing your role as an advocate for students while working with campus administration?
Well, I kind of already started on this idea that we work for the students. We want to make sure that we know what the students are up against as far as being a student on this campus and what they have to go through. A couple of things that I've heard from students is, there are a lack of student jobs, and I think this is something we can bring back to administration. As the Commissioner of Academic Affairs this year, I was able to work a lot with the administration and really advocating for what students want. I heard a need that students wanted a space that was open past 12 a.m., and I provided that by working with Pablo at EOP and really getting that space open until 2:15 a.m. These are really great opportunities to work with admin, but by no means do we actually work for admin. Admin has a really bad habit of telling us what their priorities are and then making sure that the officers go about making sure that that happens, and that's not true. The students are the ones who set the agenda. The students are the ones who send us in as advocates on their behalf, and the students are the ones who know that we're advocates because when we talk to administration and say, look, we can't pay the library any longer, and that's that, they know that that's gonna happen. The admin knows that the pressure is on and they better crunch some numbers to figure out how they're gonna do it for the next 3 years like we saw them do it this year.
I agree. I think we do need to put pressure on administration. I think that's something that both of the chair candidates have stated multiple times. But something that my fellow candidates stated is creating jobs. And my question is, how do you plan to do that? I mean, because this year as IVC, I did create jobs through the SUA, through SCOC. Getting students paid is very difficult. We don't have money on this campus. So how do we expect to get student jobs on this campus? That's my biggest question. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is going to be for the IVC candidates. And we'll start with Max this time. What are your plans for the IVC office's work with SCOC, which is the Student Committee on Committees, and local college governments?
Thank you, Cassidy. As a previous member of the Student Committee on Committees, which is a board that we all point students to, I have had a lot of experience about how that space works and how to work with it and also make sure that we get what we want as students and also put the right students on the right committees. As some of my main goals for the Student Committee on Committees, I first want to address that giant measure that is being misused right now. Right now, Measure 16, which funds the Student Committee on Committees as 75 cents per student per quarter, I want to lower that so it's more manageable, because right now we can't spend any of that money because the way the measure was wrote, and a lot of it is being spent into this giant carry forward that we can't spend it all. And to make it work more with our college governments, I want to work with our college government reps. And right now, they all come in here hardly knowing anything about committees, and I want to make it an expectation that if you're going to appoint people on these committees, I want to make sure that you have sat on a committee at least for a quarter to know what you're talking about. So I really hope that I can get every single college rep to also sit on a committee. And there are several different things I also want to work on the committee is make sure more workshops for students that go into these spaces so they look more professional and know how to negotiate with our administration when they go into those spaces. Thank you.
So if there is one thing I agree on is that the Student Committee on Committees does not have enough outreach, first of all, because I personally know that as just a regular student, as I started off at the beginning of last year, I had no idea what that was. I had no idea of its purpose. And even throughout SUA this current year, I felt like the information that was shared there wasn't really brought back to the SUA space, nor was it touched on most likely at all with the majority of the colleges. And I feel like that's a very huge problem. And when Max says that he wants to bring it back to the college reps and really work with them, I think that's great, but I think there needs to be a lot more outreach as far as the rest of student government goes, as the rest of the student body goes. So now to officially start on my next time, what I really want to do with the Student Committee on Committees is bring it out to the rest of the whole body and offer it to every single student, whether it's from organizations, whether it's from ethnic spaces, whether it's from just like interest groups, whatever it may be, clubs, obviously including college reps, but I think that there's been a really big disconnect between the fact that the IVC does have to deal with Student Committee on Committees, but nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows its purpose, and yes, it is vital, and yes, it's great for our resumes, and we should learn how to behave and how to act, but it's just knowing about it that's what's vital. you know, and then everything else will come into place. But first, outreaching to students and making sure that we do have students that are placed from the very beginning of the year in these spaces, and making sure that they're getting paid as well.
So I completely agree with you. Outreach is a huge thing, and that is one of my key platforms as well. I have spent so much time as analyzing and going to different outreach events for SUOC, and I have yet to see you at any of those. I haven't seen you at any of the C4s, I haven't seen you at any of the different college outreaches, and I really hope to see that we can get everybody from SUA to bring there and from all over the student body.
The next question will be for the candidates for external vice chair. We'll start with Tony this time. Pass the mic, please. How would you describe the UC system's relationship with the state? What are the advantages and disadvantages of the UC relationship with the state? And is this a relationship that should be maintained?
Can you repeat the question?
Of course.
So, to answer the first part of the question, what is the University of California system relation with the state? Right now, the UC is we are the university system of California, and we are the #1 public school system in the world. And I think that we have to upkeep that. We have to keep on going and really show not only to the state of California but outside to show how why we are the best public school system, and to really upkeep that relation with the state. And in terms of advantages and disadvantages, of course there will be advantages and disadvantages. Education is a huge part of our budget, both in California State Assembly and with the UC regions. We have to, so the advantages is that we provide the next generation of jobs. We provide the next generation of scholars that will move this state forward. And I absolutely think that this should be maintained. We should be working with the regions. We should be working with the California state government to make sure that our education system is their top priority.
You know, I find it interesting that Tony would say that we should be maintaining this current status quo, because I feel like if he were more involved within the external affairs, if he had come to Lobby Corps, if he had gone out and was involved with the external office or even the organizing director's office, he would see that this is not something we need to maintain at all. We need to be pushing for more funding. We need to be pushing for greater accountability by these legislators, and we need to work for greater accessibility to the university. And just going on into the next part of the question is that I don't see any advantages right now that the state is giving the University of California at all. All I see are disadvantages. All I see is funding cuts after year after year after year. And the best way I feel to address this, and the best way to do that, is to get the student voice out. Is the fact that we need to keep these people accountable to us, and the way to do that is through testimony, is through getting out. And so the fact that the UC, people may say Prop 30 was a great thing by having $125 billion put into the UC system, to me that is barely a Band-Aid. That is almost nothing. And what I want to push for is even more funding. I want to push for the reinvestment in public higher education, not only within the state, but within the nation. That is something that I have made a priority. That's something I have worked towards throughout my time within the External Affairs Office, the Organizing Director's Office, and that is something I will do regardless of elected or not. That is something I will continue to push for, despite any of these, any sort of petty politics things that matter.
I just want to address the first point of not going to SLC, not going to all these trips. I understand that I've not been on these trips, but I have done. I've put the best effort forward to be knowledgeable about what's going on. I've spoken with External Affairs VPs elect at other schools to make sure that I know what's going on, what issues are affecting students today and in the future. And Cameron noted that we need to get the student voice out. I understand that we have to get the student voice out, but how?
The next question will be for the Commissioners of Diversity candidates. We'll start with Daryl this time. How would you work with campus resource centers in your office? How would you support the work of campus resource centers as they face budget cuts?
So as I said earlier, the research centers are already going through a restructuring. And I currently already sit on the advising council committee. We have outreach to student organizations and are still outreaching to more students to come to this come to this advising committee to make sure that we can hold the administration accountable. And a lot of what I'm going to reiterate is to be able to work with the current interns, to work with the current staff and administration who work there. We are currently working with a small framework because we're in a current structural deficit, and a lot of this was due to Measure 7. We currently impose our own fees on ourselves just to keep these alive, and right now it's about making sure that we can prioritize certain sectors of the resource centers. Thank you.
The question is, how would you work with campus resource centers in your office? How would you support the work of campus resource centers as they face budget cuts? A reminder that this is your response time to their statement.
Okay, one of the issues that were brought up in SUA recently is the seismic retrofitting and the displacement of the resource centers. And that's a really big issue that they weren't even reconsidered to be put into a new space because SUA was founded on the resource centers. So it's a main duty of the Commissioner of Diversity to have to outreach to them, to maintain that communication with the resource centers.
You now have a minute and a half for your response to that question.
So with the budget cuts and the resource centers already scaling back, I think that what we should emphasize on doing is writing proposals to secure these resource centers to be able to move forward to hold events. Like the Cesar Chavez convocation was here just a couple days ago, and that was an amazing event to outreach to more students and to retain and help these underprivileged students that don't really feel comfortable on this campus have a place to belong and have a place to know that they can be themselves and have that type of mentality to be able to strive through their issues and help them move forward.
You know, currently as a student, as a worker, as a person who has to take care of a lot of different things, it's not our duty to create solutions for this. Yes, we need to actively be finding these solutions, but us as students are here to bring the issues to light. You know, it's for the university to find those solutions. We're here to advocate on these issues at work and to work with the administration and making sure that we're holding them accountable. You know, making sure that they're actively seeking these funds for the resource centers. Right now, working with the student organizations, working with the student body, and going out and actively asking people what they want and how they want to go about this is one of the biggest things that we need to really focus on.
The next question will be for the Commissioners of Academic Affairs. We'll start with Vanessa this time. What is your position on UCSC's plan to increase the percentage of out-of-state and international student enrollment? What will this mean for the UC, and do you think it beneficial or detrimental?
For out-of-state and international students, increasing the number of them is always an increase in the diversity of our student population, in the knowledge that we can get as students from other students. All of that should never, ever decrease the number of students that we already have in the university, the number of students that we come from in-state. All of that should just be maintained or uplifted the same amount as the out-of-state or international students. Because if we have students from both areas and our university increases, we maintain our prestige and we increase the numbers of students that come to our university and who graduate and who go on to do amazing things with their lives. We have less than 50 years and we're already one of the top research institutions, and that's amazing, but we want to maintain that. We want to maintain that past the 50 years. We want to be up there with all the schools that are, what's the highest school here in the UC system? It could be Berkeley, it could be UCLA. I think Berkeley's the oldest one. So we want to maintain that prestige so that we can actually compare, we can be very competitive with them, and so that there's not a disconnect between the UC schools themselves, so we're all on par with each other. And so that everybody is, now and future generations of Bananas are always going to be happy to have been here and to be part of this university.
Okay, so in my response to that, I guess I would like to say, for me personally, UC Santa Cruz, #1 UC. I ain't trying to be cheesy, but prestige I think doesn't come from, you know, like the age or whatever, but I think we have a prestigious campus. I think the fact that for years our campus had a high acceptance rate is something we should be proud of on this campus. That for years, around 80% of students got into this campus. I think that's like our dirty little secret that some of us carry around sometimes, like, oh, this was the easy school to get into. I think that's a beautiful, oh, I'm done. Can I start my other thing now? Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. So I think that's a beautiful thing that our university has over the years been accessible to students. I think what we see when we think about out-of-state students, we should continue to rethink if our institution will be able to be accessible for California students. And I am trying to sound like a xenophobe right now. I'm all down with the out-of-state students and international students because there is real issues of diversity and great things that out-of-state and international students can bring to our campus. But I also think we should really think critically about why we are having such an increase in out-of-state and international students on our campus. Executive Vice Chancellor Allison Galloway sent out an email, a campus-wide email last year, saying one of her 4 budget priorities to help our campus was to increase the number of out-of-state and international students. Did you notice how she didn't say one of her diversity priorities? It was one of her budget priorities. Same thing goes for the UC. What happens is when out-of-state students come, they do not pay into the taxes that help our school, and they pay out-of-state tuition. For that portion of the student body, this is a private university because they pay the same amount as Harvard, Yale, all of the big Ivy Leagues, whatever, and it's a private school. And what we should be considering this is a public good for California because let's be real, in many of our California cities, we have poverty, we have people not applying to schools, we have people being tracked into prisons, we incarcerate more people than any other state in the United States. And let me just say, our schools should be taking people from those prisons, we should be taking the 4th graders who are attacked into prisons, and we should be bringing them to the University of California because we deserve it as a state and it shouldn't be a budget priority.
I agree that it shouldn't be a budget priority, but the fact is that California and the United States itself is in deficit. And we apparently love to have wars, so that doesn't seem to be changing. But anyway, out-of-state does give us some more money to use, but it doesn't just go to out-of-state students. It goes to in-state students. It goes to all students so that we can have more money for more resources. And I'm not saying that we should decrease the number of in-state students, because that should never be an issue.
Thank you.